this time, the time at COVID, gave me time to pay attention to what is really out there. Frankly, that's why I'm paying more attention to ZAMI NOBLA. And that's why I asked for, and there will be a chapter in North Carolina. I can just say it because it's going to happen. You know, Marianne already sent me the paperwork. I'm just slow. That's the other thing about being 69. I can take my time.
Welcome to the ZAMI NOBLA National Organization of Black Lesbians on Aging podcast. We are your sound source for Black lesbian herstory. I'm your host, Angela Denise Davis. This is the second interview with one of our artists from our Cocktails, Tea, and Art virtual art exhibit that ZAMI NOBLA sponsored in August of 2020. We talked today with Janyce Jackson Jones, an artist from North Carolina, and she tells us her life story and some very interesting chapters. I know that you will appreciate her truth-telling as much as I did, as she shares with us the joy of being in fluid motion with life and art. You will later understand why I chose to use the word fluid as she describes to us her artistic process.
My name is Janyce Lorraine Mills Jackson Jones. I am 69 years old, and I'm reciting all of my names now because I don't usually do that. And lately I've just been acknowledging who I was born with. People know me mainly as Janyce Jackson because that's who I was for 35 years. I remarried 7 years ago and added the Jones and did not get rid of the Jackson because I'm lazy and I have a lot of stock in Jackson, a lot of, stuff. And I just don't want something to show up in Jackson and I have to prove who I am. So that's really why it's a married name, but, I just keep it for convenience.
Well, Janyce, all of those beautiful names, Jackson Jones, we are so glad that you are a part of the ZAMI NOBLA podcast today, where we get to explore all of those fascinating dimensions of your person and talk about some very exciting things that you're going to be participating in with ZAMI NOBLA during the latter part of this month. Tell me about all of those names, the Lorraine and the Jackson and the Jones. Who was the little girl that emerged out of that, and where did you grow up?
So I was born in Ocala, Florida, which is in Central Florida. I was born Janyce Lorraine Mills. Mills is my father's name. And at 13, I just skipped a whole lot of time. And I lived basically with my aunts and great aunts because my mother wanted to pursue a singing career. And she moved to New York and left us in Florida with them until I was 13. And my great aunt said, okay, enough is enough. Come get your children. And I moved to Brooklyn, New York, where I really grew up and lived most of my life.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I have, so I have one sister that I grew up with. There were the two of us that were in Florida and moved to New York. And as an adult, my mother remarried and her husband had 3 kids. So I have two other sisters and a brother that I claim.
I'm intrigued by having to pick up, your life as an early teen and move from Florida to New York. That seems like a really big transition.
It was very big. New York was very big. The buildings were tall, and we lived on a 3rd floor walk up. And I swore that as soon as I turned 18, that I'd be headed back to Florida. That was my plan. That I was not going to be. It was just too much, too big of a city. I thought. Um, but as time went on, I figured it out. My mother was still, she was a star. She wanted to be a star, and so she worked nights, and during the day, mostly she slept. So I'm 3 years older than my sister. So I was really the one that kind of took care of things. So I became um, a little adult in the big city.
Mm. Did your mom achieve that singing career she wanted?
I don't think she achieved what she wanted, but she did. She was known in the community. Uh, there were several bars that had and nightclubs, and she was on that circuit. And then, like many women have done, as she got older, and she joined the church, and she became a part of that circuit, and she sang a lot in church, and ended up being on an album in church.
Mm.
So she ended up singing while she was in church.
So you moved back down to Florida, and where does life pick up for you then?
So I never moved back to Florida. I never went back. Um, Stayed in New York, and I think I just became a New Yorker. I At 18 or 17ish, my last year in high school, um, I met a guy, got pregnant, and so had to leave school. Back in those days, they didn't let you go to school pregnant. Like today, you can still go, but I had to leave school and go to a night school. So I did that, and because I was an A student, and so I had basically, the way they do things now, they could have let me graduate it, but it's not how the world was then. And so I ended up going to night school and not getting the academic diploma. They differentiated between academic and general, and it really was based on math. And because the night school did not offer the math class or regents, I couldn't take it. So I got my general diploma. So that meant a lot to me, as you can tell. I still remember, but I did graduate. So I had my daughter at 18. Well, I married her father before she was born. That was a very abusive relationship, and I got out of it. She was about 4 years old, and I got a job with the City of New York Police Department. And I worked for the police department for 30 years. It's actually where I retired from.
What did you do within the department?
I was a civilian, first of all, and I worked with the communication section. So back before the 9/11 explosion, we referred to it as 911 because that's where the calls came in, the radio cars were dispatched from. That's the section that I worked in for 29 years. And so I started out as an operator, 9/11 operator, and moved up the ranks as supervisor and platoon captain. And when I left, I was the deputy director of the communications division.
Were you there during the 9/11?
Yes.
How was that experience?
I was employed there, I worked there, but I was not at work.
Hmm.
I had actually come back from a trip to South Africa. I had been home. I was still on vacation. I had been home 2 days. And I actually found out about 9/11 from my sister who lives in Atlanta. And she called me and asked me, was I okay and what was going on.
So, how did you move from New York to North Carolina, where you currently are?
Well, before leaving the police department, I think I was 35 years old. I was 35 years old when I um, came out, if you will.
Hmm.
I fell in love with this woman at work in the police department. We were we were in a 20-year relationship before she died in 2009, 2008. During that time, I got involved in church, Unity Fellowship Church movement. So I was working in the police department and I was doing church. And, my personality is if there's something that I could do to help or to get it going, I'm going to do it. And so I was all in it. I was a trustee, doing all kind of things. And so my last few years at the police department, because by then I hated the place. I could not, the job was just awful. It was just full of white uniformed men. And even though I had gotten to a certain rank, they did not respect it or take advantage of my skills.
What's intriguing, because I was going to ask you about that, being associated with the police in that way and
Hmm.
understanding where we are now and where we really have always been, but certainly where we are now in terms of people getting a full view of the relationships between people of color and police departments across this country.
Hmm.
What's your insight on to where we currently are now with that history of working in police communications?
It was, I want to say it was an awful place. And I wasn't even on the street. I was in the building where the administrative um, offices were. And there was just racist culture, a culture of blue against civilian, because they really felt that we were taking their jobs, even though their job was to be policing on the street, and we were doing basically administrative stuff. And most of us, the first class was Black women, young Black women.
Mm.
Back in 1973, when the police department decided that they would civilianize those jobs. First, I had to work side by side with them because they had to train us reluctantly. So I never really was directly in contact or involved with what happened on the street, aside from the way they treated us as civilians and us as the people that they had to deal with in terms of their work out on the street.
And that's very significant, because if you treat the people you're working with like that, then we can make an assumption about the way you feel about the people you're working with, you're assisting on the street.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So that's quite
Absolutely.
telling.
Yeah, absolutely. I was working the radio once, and I had an officer come over the radio and say, "Central, take the grits out of your teeth." Oh yeah, they would say all kind of things. And so it was um, it was a challenge doing that job, and we got through it because we meaning it was 95% young Black women. We
Wow.
looked out for each other, um, and we worked nights and weekends, and we had kids, and we took care of each other's kids and stuff. And so we leaned on each other to go through the racism and the civilian bashing and women bashing.
Your first partner, was she a part of that pool? The
Yes, she was. She worked. She was also a civilian in the police department. I was her supervisor when we met. We used to argue about many things, um, but she was smart and piqued my curiosity about so many different things.
hmm.
And her name was Regina Shavers. I'm gonna call her name after 22 years. So yeah, she was part of that. But she left the department and went to work for the Department of Health in HIV and AIDS before I left.
Did you have any inkling before your relationship with Regina that you were attracted to women?
I did not. I don't think I did. I still think about this today, and I did not. However, I do remember. I remember being tickled that a couple of women seemed to come on to me, butch women, in the time. Like it tickled me, but I didn't feel any, I don't think so, attraction.
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, and with Regina, it just happened. I don't know. One day, I mean, I wrote her a letter and said, I don't know how I feel about you. If you were a man, I would know how to describe it, and I would say that, fall in love with you, this whole thing that I went through, until I realized that I just loved her and loved being with her, and we did many exciting things together, and it just felt good. And that was also a fight on my job because now, everybody knows us.
Mm.
And so we had to go through that challenge. Lost a couple of friends, but also gained some real friends and allies in encouraging me to just be me and take what felt good.
After decades of working with the police, um, and doing your church work with that, you have this relationship with Unity Fellowship. And let's talk about the ways in which that led you to your life as a minister.
Yeah, which is, was not on another thing that was not on my radar or in my path. But so, when I realized how I felt about Regina, as I've heard others do, I went uh, straight to church. Okay, God, if this is wrong, give me a sign. That was my prayer. I already belonged to a church in Brooklyn, same church that my mother belonged to. And Regina's family also were church people. But she would not go. She refused to go because she said she was not wearing a dress.
Mm.
She was not going anywhere where she couldn't be herself. And I think it was 1990, we went to California, Los Angeles, for a Black Leadership Summit, I think it was called. And in that leadership summit, on that Sunday, there was a church service, Unity Fellowship,
Mm-hmm.
and we decided to go check it out. We stood outside and watched who went in and what they looked like, and they looked like us. More so, they looked like her. Um, and we went in, and that's how we that was our introduction to Unity Fellowship.
Mm.
And so after the service, we both said, we need this in New York. You know, if we can get this to come to New York, if this comes to New York, we will do what we can to make it happen because we don't have this. And I think maybe a year or two later, some other folks from Lavender Light Gospel Choir um, got the people from Unity Fellowship to come. And we went to that first service and was just committed. We believed that we were not wrong by loving each other. And we also, believed in God. I mean, it's what we knew. And so we wanted to be in a place where we could be all of who we were. And so both of us just dove in
Mm-hmm.
um, to help with the administrative part in any way that we could. That was the beginning. And I was always a shy person. Like I worked hard, but I didn't have to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of my work behind the scenes. And at some point in New York, um, let's see, how do I say this? The the woman, the clergy woman in New York decided that she needed to leave and go somewhere else. And that was Newark, New Jersey. And I followed her. There's church is church and stuff happens and there's a whole lot of in between, but that's basically what happened. got a calling to move to Newark. So I told her I would come over and help. And when she got the church started, she'd be on her own. And I had actually stopped going to the church in New York, and that I would, live my life and go to the beach on Sunday.
Mm.
And famous last words. I kept going over and kept going over and kept helping her, and being involved in the ministry and the HIV/AIDS work, and the young people and the young men, and I just could not leave,
Mm.
and wanted to find a way that I could be more involved.
So you recognized that you had a call to ministry.
Yeah, yeah, I did. I accepted it, but I still didn't accept it on such a level as I ended up doing. The truth of the matter is the way I became pastor is that I believe I was the next in line to take the reins after our pastor got sick. She actually, and I can say this because she talks about it openly. Thank God, she had an emotional breakdown,
Mm-hmm.
and so the reins needed to be picked up, and I did it for 10 years.
And now, what are you doing in ministry where you're currently located in North Carolina?
So I retired as pastor in 2016. I retired as the executive director of the LGBT Community Center in 2016. And I moved to North Carolina to live on the beach.
That's a very
I,
good ministry. A very good ministry. I'm aspiring to that ministry myself.
oh gosh, it's you gotta really affirm it because it's a hard transition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to pastor anymore, yet I still wanted to be involved in the church
Mm-hmm.
somehow. And so there's no local church very close to me. The closest one is in Charlotte, which is 3.5 hours from here. And so the work that I do with Unity Fellowship Church Movement is in the national realm,
Okay.
but I don't have a local congregation here.
And where are you located in North Carolina?
Leland,
Leland.
North Carolina.
Leland,
It's
North Carolina.
close to Wilmington, which is on the coast
Mm.
by the beach.
Well, if you ever need any associate ministers, I'm sure you have some people who'll be willing to work that ministry with you
On the beach,
on the
absolutely.
beach. Ministry on the
Absolutely.
beach. I am so excited also to talk about your work as an artist and what you're going to be showing at the Cocktail Tea and Art
Mm-hmm.
virtual art show that ZAMI NOBLA is hosting on August 22nd, 2020. In this time of the coronavirus pandemic, we're doing so much online stuff for our community, and you're going to be a part of that. How did you begin the process of becoming an artist?
Ah, first of all, let me say, when I got the email from Marianne, I just sat here and was like, "Oh my God, oh my God." So, so how I when I came to North Carolina, like I said, my goal was to really just be on the beach and just enjoy, not get involved in anything, pretty much. But after a year of I slept a lot. I was tired. I slept a lot and rested. And after about a year and a half, I started looking around. Okay, I need something to do. And I got involved in a couple of organizations, but I also began to volunteer at the local senior center. And so I volunteered at the center 3 days a week. I worked the front desk and was really having a ball. I mean, and so I was having a good time. And then they got some funding to have a constant person at the desk, and I got hired to work like 11 hours at the front desk. So I'm still enjoying it. And there was a class that the director said they were doing fluid art, And I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. It's during the time that I'm working, but I would really like to take that class, see what it's all about. And they said, sure, take the class. So I took the class, and I came out um, with um, with something that I thought was really pretty, and I was really surprised. And I showed it to my wife, and she liked it. And I showed it to my boy, and people were excited, and I was excited. And so I was like, wow. I had all my life I've been told, or I've been thinking like that I have something. Like people will say to me that, you're an artist, you're a poet, you're this, you're that. And I'm like, I can't see it. I'm looking for it. Where is it? And so I came home with that piece, and I said to Valerie, look at this. And it was really easy. And, I could do this. And so I headed to Michael's to buy some stuff, and I did another one. And that was really good. And then I did a third one on a testing that it didn't turn out the way that I thought it would, but I kept playing with it. And then I left it, and I came back like 3 days later, and it is my favorite piece.
Mm. What medium is this? Is it
This is
acrylic or?
acrylic art, fluid art. So you don't use a brush. I don't need a brush or a pen, or it's paint pouring. So
Mm.
it's really about pouring the art in various ways on the canvas or the wood or the whatever medium. I mean, I make coasters. I have a lot of shells that I've also poured on. It's the recipe of the mixture, and the mixture of the colors, and the way you tilt it, turn it, blow it. I mean, there's just so many different things that you can do with it, and experiment with it. And there are so many artists doing it. Like I went on YouTube, and like it's like, where have I been? I've never heard of this. I've never seen it, but so many people are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned a few more things, and then COVID hit. So now I'm home. And I'm upstairs in a room that I've claimed my own, because I can make my own temperature, and I can hide out from the dog. And so I began to just come up here, and I'd end up doing like 2 or 3 paintings a night, until one day I looked around, and I had like 50 different paintings.
Mm.
And I showed them on Facebook, and the response was amazing. Like I almost cried. I was so excited. So that's how I got started. And then people asked, after I showed them, they were like, "Well, are they for sale?" I went, "Well, why not?" And so I I sold a few, and yeah, I'm still painting.
The artistic process to me sounds a lot like life. The way in which things turn and the movement responds to the turning of that. It sounds very spiritually satisfying, I think, to do something like that. I've never done fluid art like that, but to me, there's something very uh, satisfying about that. Just the process of it. It sounds like it would be absolutely calming and reflective to turn the paint and the canvas in that way.
It really is. I mean, from picking the colors to deciding, there are different techniques that you can use. And I find that I've learned a few, but I've also like thrown in, like I can look at it, and I'm like, maybe I can do this. I've stuck my finger in it, and drew a line or something. um, and I've also found that, um, like, if there's always something, there's always something in my head. I'm thinking about something. Something is going on, And while I'm painting, sometimes I have those conversations with myself that are calming, that
Mm.
are not they don't become as serious as I may have thought they were, in how I think about things. And sometimes it's just hard to describe to people the joy that I get out of doing it. And then now to look around, like the room is crazy, but it's all stuff that I created, that 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 I created. It's like, where did that come from? Like this is a whole new Janyce. This is not a Janyce that I was um connected to. So that's how I got started. I am as nervous as I am about it. I'm also just excited to show that I'm 69. I've had a job. I've had a it's like my fourth lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
life goes on. It's that I'm doing something that I never thought I would. It's not like it's something that I had seen and tried and didn't think I could do. It's like it wasn't even in my view.
Mm-hmm.
And then here it is because I was open to trying it, open to doing it, and open to showing it to somebody else. Because sometimes we don't want to. Sometimes I don't want to show people what I'm doing because I'm afraid of what they might think.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't matter so much to me because I love it so. I'm just like in love with the process.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, and there's a certain joy in hearing you say that, because one of the other artists showing with you, Verlena Johnson, talked about how for her, she came to realize she needed to share. It was just not an option. She needed to share. That was her purpose, to share her work with other people. And there's something great. Like I know there's going to be something great about people seeing your work on the 22nd, and hearing your story, and then getting inspired with themselves about the new artists within them and how
mhm.
they can begin the process of being creative. It's very contagious when we share the best of who we are with the world.
I hope so. I hope so. That's the other reason that I thought that, you know, my part in the show on the 22nd can really be about just telling my story and how I got involved.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had no clue about this. Um, I've messed up my carpet up here. I've I've turned this room. I mean, this was like a TV room and a workspace. It's like turned into something totally. I mean, it looks like if my mother were to see this room, she would be like, "What in the world?" I mean, but I don't care about that because all I care about is finding a place to put my paintings
Mm-hmm.
and more space because I want to do bigger ones. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, I do want to to be able to talk about that and share that and because I don't know, 69. I'm 69. I don't feel old. I don't feel like it's the end. I feel like um, I can do even more. Like, so now this whole, I don't know if I'm saying it right, ukulele or ukulele.
Ukulele. Yes, yes,
Ukulele.
yes.
I've tried the piano. I can play a little piano. So I've just, I have to acknowledge that I've just tried different things.
Well, there's something amazing about saying yes to the creative side of you. So if you say yes to ukulele, you'll never know what happens. You may be there painting a ukulele in fluid art. You know, you never know. You never
Well,
know.
you're right because I've seen painting on the
Mm-hmm.
ukulele.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fluid paint. So I was like, oh, maybe I could do that.
Well, yes.
Yeah, so I'm excited to be on, and I'm excited about the whole, we were talking earlier about how busy we are and on Zoom and everything during COVID, but for me, it has also given me the opportunity to stop and really pay attention to some things
Mm-hmm.
that I thought I might be interested in. So paying attention to what ZAMI NOBLA is doing, and listen to the different the podcasts and the concerts. It has given me a moment to like take advantage of what's out in the world, even though it's different, which makes it even better. Sometimes I don't have to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The cost is not as prohibitive,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a way to enjoy life, and I'm doing that right now.
What other ways has your life been shaped by the coronavirus pandemic?
Well, a couple of ways. The other thing that I enjoy doing that I had started last year, but this year is gardening. Um, I have a garden in the back. I've had it since I moved here. I learned a little. One year it went well. The next year it didn't. But this year I've spent more time with it, and my okra is just off the chain.
I love okra.
Yeah, me too. And planting flowers. So I've had a chance to do that as well. And my wife and I we're in the house together. We don't have a big house. So we're basically here together, and had started to do some intentional work on our relationship right before COVID. Um, and so that has worked out really well because we don't have a place to run.
Mm-hmm.
We're like in each other's face, and we're doing the work, and it's been really good. I'm really happy about that, and yet we can still um, we've worked through some stuff that was just different because we moved here. She worked nights, I worked days. And when we moved here, it was all different. So we had to learn how to actually live together during the same time frame.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and COVID has given us the kind of um, what's the word? The express time to work it out, to work it out. So that's been good as well. I must say though, I think I'm ready to, I think that I'm ready to get out of the house, but then I think, where would I go other than the beach, which I do that anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a different experience that's quite challenging, but it also, as you said, it also presents some pretty incredible opportunities if we
hmm
seize them, if we choose to seize them, like you've done. Have you picked out your pieces for the art show?
I have. So what I didn't mention was, so when I put them on Facebook, and people asked if they were for sale, and then I said yes, it opened up a whole new area that I had to pay attention to, you
Mm-hmm.
know like pricing and shipping, and so I was walking around the house saying, I just want to paint, I just want to paint, I just want to paint. um so I thought of that yesterday when I was taking the pictures of all my pieces. So I'm pretty much, I have a handle on it. I want to show, like what I did in the beginning, my very first one, and then my third one, which is my favorite, and then just show, kind of group them in techniques if I could.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It sounds very, very exciting. At 69, with a new venture as an artist, exploring relationships in your world, what's the joy of being a Black lesbian at this point in time for you? How would you describe the joys of being an older Black lesbian?
well, first of all, at 69, I feel like, and I was having a conversation about this today, is that I can do what I want to do. I've been out the whole time, and I the joy for me is being able to live fully and not have my life and my activities and my associations be stressful.
Mm-hmm.
I specifically I got involved with this organization, this LGBT organization, and it's all white, and I'm like uh, one of two black people involved. I brought the other one in, and I found that it's not working.
Mm.
It's not working. Um, they're racist. I'm just gonna say it. They don't know it, and they're not interested. And I said to myself, "Well, why are you doing that? You don't need that. You know why?" And so I've decided I don't I don't need them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and and I've also decided, and that's why I said it gave me this time, the time at COVID gave me a time to pay attention to what is really out there.
Yes.
I'm not confined to the little organization that's here with me. I can't see them anyway.
Yes.
So that's why frankly, that's why I'm paying more attention to ZAMI NOBLA. And that's why I asked for, and there will be a chapter in North Carolina. I can just say it because it's going to happen.
All right.
Marianne already sent me the paperwork. I'm just slow. That's the other thing about being 69. I can take my time.
There's something about taking your time. That's a wonderful thing as we get older and knowing the gift of time and how we can fill that time.
hmm
Um, I ask my guests at the end of each interview, is there something that I left out? Is there a question I didn't ask? Is there a bit of information you want to share with our listeners that would be helpful for folks to know?
Well, I want to, there's not enough time. I'm 69, so I know there's not enough time to tell everything about my story. But I do want to mention that I have two daughters, two beautiful women that I love dearly. That one uh, only knows me, well, almost as a lesbian. She grew up with me being out and open, and of course, she's the one that is most accepting to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to acknowledge them. Um, and I just really want to share that I have moved beyond fear and anxiety in a lot of ways. For many years of my life, I felt that I could not do. I was not able, I was not worth it. And at some point, not quite sure when, but it changed to I can do. Um, I may not be able to do everything, but there are some things that I can do and I can do them well. And to be able to say that and acknowledge that has freed me to be more open in the world. And so I I'm 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 happy about that. I'm like at this age and at this time, I'm different, a totally different person in the way I think and move in the world. And I think that's because I have allowed myself to be open and to be in relationship with myself and with people just as they are.
Janice Lorraine Mills Jackson Jones.
Yes.
Thank you for being so open with us and for being part of our Black lesbian history.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
I love a good story. Thank you, Janyce Jackson Jones, for being so honest in your truth telling. There were so many incredible dimensions of her story. And if you take the opportunity to visit our show notes, you'll see a link to her artist page on Facebook. You can come to understand how her life is just as fluid and beautiful and full of dynamic quality as is her art. Again, Janyce, thank you so very much. I hope you enjoyed our podcast episode today. I'm sure you did. And because you did, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I would like you, wherever you listen to this podcast today, if you've never done it before, now's your time to leave a review, to make a comment, to give a rating. Your feedback makes a world of difference. And if there's something you want to share with our listening audience, feel free to contact me via email, podcast@zaminobla.org. As we continue to live in a world where we are challenged by a global pandemic, I hope you're doing well. And as always, have a sweet one.
Hey,